Bon, donc en fait, ça va marcher comme ça, c'est ça? Ah là, comme ça? D'accord, c'est pas ça. C'est pareil, hein, d'accord. Oui. Bon, pardon.
So I will introduce, would like to introduce Jean-Pierre Françoise from Sorbonne University on CNRS. And he has, I think, make interesting connection between integrable system and information geometry.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for this invitation, and very nice place. So I will talk about information geometry. So it's the first time in this meeting that we speak about information geometry, but I think that you will hear a lot of other talks on this topic. It's really, for me, I think, a fascinating subject, but I will explain why I think so. Actually, I will only talk with a link with integrable systems. And in fact, this is the plan of my talk. In a short introduction, I will present the Toda lattice, which is a famous integrable system, and I will recall the work of Flaška. It is a situation where we can associate to a Hamiltonian system a kind of integration by inverse scattering. So I will frequently speak about inverse scattering, but I will not enter into details. So the analytic details I will not explain. Actually, this the link with information geometry was done rather a long time ago by Nakamura, and I will explain his result in this first part, and then I will explain that I believe that a system which is not related easily to the Toda lattice display, in fact, the same characteristic, that it can be integrated in some sense in some information geometry. Okay. Then the second part will be Jacobi flows and string equation, and I will finish with a part which is finite information geometry, and which is which looks important in the case of the Picon system. So I don't know if you heard about Picon, but I will explain also. Okay, so this talk presents in parallel the open Toda lattice and the finite Picon system. Actually, it is Picon and anti-Picon, but I will explain. And their scattering theory, which both relate with Jacobi flows, and technically, they rely on a theorem of Stieltjes. So Frédéric, who likes very much history of mathematics, Stieltjes was a professor in Toulouse, and his article is in the Annales de l'Université de Toulouse. Okay, so Moser, in his article, writes that Stieltjes was the first contributor to scattering theory. So we show that both of these systems linearize in the setting of information geometry. Okay. So first of all, the Toda lattice. Okay, here is the Toda lattice. So it is a classical Hamiltonian system that I call of Newtonian type, because you have kinetic energy and the potential energy. You see that all masses are equal, and that the particle interacts, they are on a line, you can think that they are on a line, and they interact within closest neighbors. In fact, this system was introduced by Toda, who was a famous Japanese mathematician. And shortly after, the Fermi-Ulam past experience. Okay, so the symplectic form is of course the standard Darboux form, sigma of dxk wedge dyk. And so, in fact, you can write this system by this equation. Xk dot is the sum of two exponentials. And here we can set different boundary conditions. Sometimes it is called the Toda chain. I will here put what is called the open Toda conditions, that x0 is minus infinity and xn is plus infinity. Okay. There is, for instance, another kind of boundary condition, which is the periodic Toda lattice. You assume that there is a periodicity, but its integration use other kind of techniques. So I follow the presentations of Jürgen Moser. It is a famous article in 1975. And then I will follow a presentation of Beals, Sattinger, and Schmizelski. They had a series of articles, first on Toda and then after on the Picon system. Okay, and so let us begin with the Flaška transform. So you change variable xk and yk in such a way. You have new variables ak and bk, and they are defined like this. And then you discover that if you write the time evolution of the new variables ak and bk, then you get ak dot, sorry there is a dot missing here, is ak times bk plus 1 minus bk, and bk dot is twice is 2 times ak square minus ak minus 1 square, and with the boundary conditions being a0 is an is 0. Okay, so it is already remarkable because in fact in this new system you have invariant space. AK is 0, or also invariant open sets. AK positive will be left invariant, AK negative also. And it will be important at some point. But in fact, the most fascinating way to write this equation is to insert AK and BK in a matrix, which is a three-diagonal matrix. The B are on the diagonal, and on the upper and lower diagonal, you put the A. And then the two equations, or the two set of equations that I wrote, can be expressed in a matrix form. L dot is equal to the bracket of L with this matrix B. So this shows, in some sense, already the integrability. Because this is actually called a lax pair, and in fact it has the consequence that the trace of LK dot are all constant of motion. So you get a lot of constant quantity, and they are okay, you can check by hand that they are, let's say, generically independent. Still, it is not what people call integrable Hamiltonian system. And we can check that all these extra constant of motion themselves generate Hamiltonian flows, and they all commute. Or if you prefer, set in another way, these functions are in involution, and this we get in fact what is called the Liouville integrability of a Hamiltonian system. That if it is of the degree, the number of degree freedom is n, then you have n first integrals which are generically invariant. Generically independent, and which are in involution. Okay, but in fact, we want more, and we want to try to find some process which express explicitly the solutions in the coordinates, in the initial coordinates, xk, yk, or in these coordinates of Flaschka. And actually, this is explained in Moser article, but let me switch to the second system that I will present. And I will after explain how we can integrate explicitly either the Toda lattice or this Picon model. Okay, so what we have here is a PDE. It is one-dimensional in space and one-dimensional in time, and it is of course nonlinear. So this is now a very famous equation, which is called the Kamasa-Holm equation. It was introduced in 1993, and using scaling and approximate Hamiltonian. And they checked that it is formally at least integrable by the method of inverse scattering. Okay, also, it shares, this equation shares the important property of KdV equation in the sense that it supports solutions which behave as solitary as solitons. But here these solutions are dubbed picons because they are not smooth, but they are only C0 and they have a peak either on one side or on the other side. Okay, and so how can we find these special solutions? Kamasa and Holm proposed to look at solutions which are of this type. So you see there are some of mg of t, function of x, and this function of x is exponential of -2 absolute value of x minus xk. So it's of course not C1. So these are called picons, and then we have to put this expression inside this PDE. And we have to compute using, I would say, traditional distribution theory. So the Kamasa-Holm equation can be seen as a compatibility condition between this equation in relating u and ux to m and this equation here. And in the following, m is taken to be a discrete measure with weights mj at location xj. So you have finitely sum of Diracs on points x1, x2, xn. And then we write this equation interpreting the derivatives in the sense of distributions. And so what we obtain is, again, Hamiltonian equation. So you see xj dot is a function of, is u of xj. It is a derivative of a function h, which is here, relatively to mj, and mj dot is minus dh over dxj, and then this part is minus the average value of ux. Ux, there is a derivative, first derivative on the left and on the right, and you take the demi-sum of these two derivatives, and this is this equation for this Hamiltonian. H is quadratic in mj, mk, and in fact you recognize, of course, the energy in the Sobolev space. So what kind of system is it? So it's a kind of geodesic flow, of course. So a priori, it's quite different to Hamiltonian, which is of Newtonian type. Okay. Few words about information geometry. It seems that the first time the name information geometry was used is in an article by Amari, Kurata, and Nagaoka, Information Geometry of Boltzmann Machines. And Amari and Nagaoka discovered the fascinating result that smooth families of probability distributions admit dual connections as their natural structures. So formally, I will not give a complete course on this topic, but let's say that you have information geometry. If you have a manifold where you have some Riemannian measure, but Riemannian metric, sorry. So, but you have also two connections which are compatible in some sense, connection in the sense of COSUL, and which are compatible, but which linearize the manifold and independently. So you have flat manifolds, but with I would say two kinds of flatness. In particular, in such manifold, and it was already the beautiful example of Amari for Gaussian probability measures, you can have a Riemannian manifold with a non-flat metric. Okay, so since then, information geometry aims to study information theory from the viewpoint of dual connections. Actually, it has developed in a completely independent way, in some sense, looking at analog of Kähler geometry in a real opposed to complex setting. And this viewpoint underlines the book of Shima, which is called Geometry of Hessian Manifolds, and it reveals early influence of Jean-Louis COSUL and Jacques Weil. Okay, so the link with my topic today is the following. In a series of articles, Nakamura uncovered the linearization of the Toda lattice in the flat coordinates associated to a Hessian manifold. So that means that the Toda lattice linearizes in a set of coordinates, which is exactly one of the two set of coordinates associated to the flat connection. Okay, so it's remarkable, and in fact, when you see this structure, you think that it is very rare to find this, but the most amazing fact, fascinating fact, is that there are a lot of applications and a lot of examples where you have these Hessian manifolds. Okay, so what I will concentrate on my talk is trying to explain why we have also this same phenomena for the picon or picon anti-picon. There is a very few difference between the two systems. And that it also linearizes in the flat coordinates of a Hessian manifold. Okay, and in fact, the approach that I found for the moment is very different from Nakamura. By the way, Nakamura in his article deduced an important consequence. It is the existence of a tau function for the Toda lattice, which was not known before his contribution. Okay. Okay, so second part, I explain what are Jacobi flows and also string equation. Okay, so string in the old sense, it is not a string in field theory. Okay, let us go back to a Jacobi matrix like this and assume that the AJ are strictly positive. So first remark, the eigenvalues of Jacobi matrix are always simple. Why? Because in fact, when you write the equation JV is lambda V for finding eigenvalue and eigenvector, then you realize that you get immediately a recursive relation between which defines Vj plus 1 from Vj. So this shows that V1 is the only free parameter. So the eigenspace must be of dimension 1, and so the eigenvalues are simple. Now, in general, an isospectral flow of J has the lax form J dot is JB, B transpose is minus B. Excuse me, there is a minus missing here. So this is a generalization of the example we have for Toda. Here I put the name isospectral because I recall that from this equation you can deduce that the eigenvalues are conserved by the flow. Okay, so okay, now there is a family of such isospectral deformation which is associated to any function, I would say, of J, and here you define the skew symmetric matrix by the associated to this function, and you define the Jacobi flow by the equation J dot is the bracket of J with B of J. Then we get that along the Jacobi flow, AJ dot is the product of this part times AJ, and so of course it preserves the positivity condition AJ positive, but you get a large family of examples of isospectral flow. And now for the Toda lattice, actually, you can take phi of J equal to J. Okay. So we will normalize Jacobi matrix by this remark. Actually, we can replace in the Jacobi equation J by J minus lambda I. So we move the eigenvalues. So in fact, we can make this this change in such a way that all eigenvalues are negative except the last one, which is equal to 0. Remember that the eigenvalues are simple. Okay, so there is a unique vector, V, which is the eigenvector, which corresponds to this eigenvalue here, such that up to some scaling, so if I fix the norm of V equal to 1 and Vn positive, and this is called the normalized null vector. So, associated to this, then we can easily define, there is a -1 missing here, sorry. We can define a Weil function like this by definition. Actually, you can also proceed by inverse scattering, but I want to avoid all the technicalities of inverse scattering. And so here you can get directly from the Jacobi matrix, in fact, the Weil function. So Weil function is the sense of inverse scattering. And then it is usually usual to introduce Cj, which are the residue of this. So this is a rational function, but the poles are simple. So you can write W of lambda like this. And in fact, you can relate this Cj to the isospectral projection to the eigenspace corresponding to the eigenvalue lambda j. Okay, so we have constant of motion and we have the Cj. These are the scattering data, in fact. And so the equation now is reduced to just the equation on the Cj. because lambda j dot is 0. And this equation is now this is a little bit technical, but okay. In fact, we can show that the entries of the Vj are positive. This has some importance for the. But let me assume, if you are interested, you can see in my text proof. Okay, so what is the evolution, time evolution of the Cj? So we can prove this theorem. The residues of the Welle functions evolve linearly like this. And in fact, this is already in Moser article for the Toda lattice. But there is another way to write it with Rj equal to Aj and n. This is the last diagonal element of the projector on the eigenvalue lambda j. So you have Rj dot is 2 phi lambda j Rj minus 2 phi of j and n Rj. So this is an equation which is called the Moser equation by or the Moser system by Nakamura. And in fact, Nakamura follows by saying that, in fact, we can easily integrate it. And the explicit equation for the time evolution of the Rj is given by this expression. And in fact, for instance, you can extend it to the Katz-Van Merbeek flow. I said this because coming back to the Toda lattice, so I said that you have a family of first integrals, and the next integral, I would say H2, is exactly this system which was independently studied by Katz and Van Merbeek. So Nakamura, first of all, when he saw this equation, he uncovered a link with what he called the average Hebbian learning equation. So there is already some link with information geometry. But then he goes on and he shows that actually there is a setting in which the Toda flow linearized, and it is a system associated to the so-called e-geodesics for the information geometry, for the manifold that he introduced, which is of the type of Hessian manifold. Okay. Then actually it's not yet finished the story, because we have explicitly the evolution of the Cj, but we would like to have the formulas of evolution of the initial coordinates, or let's say AK and BK. And in fact, this is exactly the place where it can be solved by a theorem of Stieltjes. Okay, I have not the time to explain this theorem, but it's a very beautiful contribution. Okay, now what happens with? Let us go back to the Kamasaon, to the Picon system. So it is not possible to find immediately the analogous equation for the Picon system, and Beals, Sattinger, and Chmielewski proceed by developing a kind of string problem. So, by a discrete string, we mean a collection of masses which are located at points, and which we take to lie it's just a scaling in the interval 0, 1. So such a string is a discrete measure, and we define the associated string problem, which is to determine the non-trivial solutions in U and lambda given by the derivative uxx, second derivative of U is lambda mu with boundary conditions U of 0 and equal U of 1 is equal to 0. So this function U, we assume that it is continuous, piecewise linear, and whose derivative have jumps at the yj. So in fact, you have discrete data, so you will not be surprised by this fact that this equation is the same as this family of conditions. Qj minus 1 is Lj Pj, Pj plus 1 minus Pj is lambda Mj Qj, and boundary conditions. Because here you can recognize the discretization of the second order derivation. So it is equivalent to a matrix problem, of course, which can be written with a Jacobi matrix. So we are not so far as a presentation with Jacobi flows. And actually, after some rescaling, I would say, we can in fact introduce Aj and Bj, and we have in function of these Mj and Lj, and in fact they are, oops, sorry, they are they form the components of Jacobi matrix. Okay, and then we can associate to any normalized Jacobi matrix a unique discrete string problem, and this is the proof. So in fact, it is if and only if, in fact, there is a one-to-one correspondence between Jacobi matrix and this string problem. And so, in fact, we can define a Weyl function by this approach, and we can define that the Weyl function of the string problem coincides with the Weyl functions of the associated Jacobi matrix. And in fact, it is much simpler to work with the string problem than to do the job directly on the Jacobi matrix. Okay, so there are some computations, but we can escape. And now I would like, how much time we have? Maybe 50 minutes? It's okay? Okay. Now I would like to explain that using string equations or the data of string equations, actually it seems natural to use finite information geometry directly on this data and see what is the system that we obtain. And the final result will be, okay, we can recognize that the motion is the motion defined by the E geodesics. Okay, so in fact, I follow here the book, which is very interesting, which I found very interesting, and you have one of the co-authors in the room. So, in fact, there are. It's the only only book where I have found the example of the discrete information geometry, and it is very nice to explain it to be in. Yes. I don't know. I don't know the reference. Okay. 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 Ah, very nice. Okay. Okay. So let us introduce the notation. So we take a finite set. We consider the algebra of real functions f of I defined on the finite set. Of course, there is a canonical basis AI, so that this is AI of j is 1 if I is equal to j. AI of j is 0 if I is different of j. So every function can be written like this. Now, if we take linear forms on fi, they can be interpreted as signed measures on I, and we define sets also S, A, M, M plus, P, P plus. So these are so SA is S of I, where the sum of the Fi is equal to A. M of I is the case where the sum is equal to 1. And M plus is the subset of it where all Fi are strictly positive. It's important to extract these subcases. Here it is probability, so the sum is equal to 1. And this is also with probability, but with all terms are different of 0. Of course, with this discrete data, you can build a tangent space, a cotangent space, and the same for all these space. So, in fact, we want to put a geometry on this. And put a geometry on this, that means we want, first of all, to have a Riemann tensor. And it's quite nice. So, given a measure mu, we have a natural L2 product on f of I. So, given two vectors of mu A and mu B of T mu M plus I, we define this metric. It's a famous Fisher metric. And the Fisher metric was introduced by Fisher, of course, in the field of statistics, was seen by Rao as a Riemannian metric. So it's an important step to have this setting in differential geometry. It is relevant in estimation theory within statistics. And it also appears in mathematical population genetics, and where it is known as the Shashahani metric. And I have seen myself use of Shashahani metric in genetic I don't know, probably Indian, probably, yes, probably. Ah, okay. But many people in biology know this metric. The Fisher metric induces a bundle isomorphism. So it maps linear forms to functions. And in fact, here I put M plus, so all elements have positive coefficients. So in fact, it exists a mapping like this, and it is a simple version of the Radon-Nikodym derivative. So I will use this to define actually the Fisher metric. No, I mean it is by computation now. Once we have defined the Fisher metric, then we can check that it is associated to this tensor. And its inverse goes like this. And actually, it is very close to the initial meaning of Fisher with the covariance matrix, of a probability measure. And now, okay, so we have this, and now we would like to have sets, any sets, and mapping to this discrete setting, and try to lift the Fisher metric, to have a Fisher metric on the set. And it is a very interesting story, because it is not so easy. And it seems that there are connections with a series of lectures that Kolmogorov gave at the Institut Henri Poincaré in 1955 in Paris, where actually discussed what should be natural differential structure on these statistical distributions. And in fact, if I understand well, the good setting was found by Shentsov in 1965, and independently by Morse, the famous Marston-Morse, and Sacksteder in 1966. And they both invented a category, which is a category of statistical models. So this is probably the nice setting of information theory. And we are not far from information geometry, because we have just to lift the Fisher metric. So its objects are statistical models, so that's okay. These are sets where you have a mapping like this to m plus I, and which is the differential is injective. But to define a category, you have to define maps between these sets. And you have to define good maps. This is the problem to define the category. And the arrows, or the map, if you prefer, in this category are the Markov kernel that you have heard in the beginning of this conference. Okay, so there are, even in this setting, there are several ways to define them. So a general definition of a Markov kernel is a map like this. So when you have this, actually you can ask a little bit more. Particular examples of Markov kernel are given in terms of map like this. And so each Markov kernel induces a corresponding map between the probability here, probability distributions. And if we assume that we have the length of corresponding to I and the one corresponding to I prime, this is less than this one, then a Markov kernel is congruent if there is a partition AI, so that we have this. So in fact, it is not necessary to have this to get the lifting of the Fisher metric, but in fact, it is much easier to proceed with this. So in fact, it is natural to impose in the categories that we have a Markov kernel which are concurrent. Okay, so this is now the lifting of the Fisher metric on or the pullback of the Fisher metric on the set M. And there is a beautiful theorem which explains that we have made a good choice, because so this is the theorem of Shentsov. We assign to each non-empty and finite set a metric hi on p plus I. If for all congruent Markov kernel, we have k star of hi is this, and then there exists necessarily a constant alpha such that h prime is equal to alpha times j prime, so that ji is a Fisher metric. So there is unicity in some sense of the metric which possesses this property. So for the proof, I refer to this, to your book. Okay. Now, in this setting, it is nice to introduce the parallel transport of the two connections. So, parallel transport is a connection, by the way. It is the term connection is more recent in some sense. So, the tangent bundle and the cotangent bundle are Cartesian product. So, they are natural mapping from this to this by taking mu A to the same A, mu A. This corresponds to parallel transport. But there is another parallel transport which is possible, a second parallel transport, which involves the Radon-Nikodym derivative. So this is called the M connection, and this is called the E connection. And now if you look at the geodesics, in the sense of geodesic of affine connections, so they are denoted nabla M and nabla E. So the corresponding maximal M and E geodesics are given by this equation for gamma M, and for gamma E you find this flow, and you see immediately that it is the same flow as the equation that generalizes the Moser equation. Okay, so we see rather quickly the link with information geometry, and in fact, for the moment, I can find it directly by the finite information theory, information geometry. It is quite possible that, in fact, we could use also the approach by Nakamura, which is completely different because he built actually a manifold which is associated to some metrics, a family of metrics, and he explained that he used the result of Amari that there exist an Hessian, that there are Hessian manifolds. But for the moment, I like this proof. Okay, so maybe I would like to give you some references because on the text I have little bit quick about these references. This is the basic theorem of Moser and the article of Moser. This is the one where he explained the link between integrable system and the inverse scattering. Actually, I would like to quote this series of work by Anthony Bloch, Brockett, and Ratiu, because they studied systematically integrable Hamiltonian systems so that in restriction to the constant, the set of constant of motion, you have an integral gradient flow. And I believe that presumably we can extend to the class of systems that they have this type of results. Bills, Sattinger, and Smigelski, they made a series of very nice articles on Picon systems. By the way, I just did not precise what are Picon or not Picon. So Picon and when in the model Picon anti-Picon, in fact, you don't assume that the coefficients Cj or K are positive. They can have any signs, and so it's a bit I would say surprising that it can extend to this case. But in fact, because of the theorem of Stieltjes, that we have explicit algebraic expressions for obtaining the time evolution of the AJ BJ in terms of the constant of the data scattering. Since it is algebraic, you have immediately an algebraic extension. And so this was one of the beauty of their paper. Okay, I would like to add to this some remark, some other reference, sorry. So there is the famous book of Amari. These are two articles by Nakamura and Kodama, who is also a famous specialist of integrable systems. This is the book of Shima, which is more differential geometry, and the books that I already quoted. And I think it's time to stop. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. In the theorem of Dustermat-Ekman, very beautiful theorem, in fact, you must have a torus action. So this is not often the case when we have integrable system. When you have integrable system, you have locally, of course, a torus action. But in order to prove that the approximation of the stationary phase is exact, then if you follow the proof of that they give, they use really the fact that you have an action of the torus. And after there has been extension by Nicole Berlin and so, but so it is a rather special case in the setting of integrable systems. Okay. Yeah. Ah, no. It is the flatness refers to the structure of Hessian manifolds. So when you say that you have a Hessian manifold, if you have a Riemannian manifold, and on this Riemannian manifold, you have two connections, or if you prefer parallel transport, such that in fact when you integrate the geodesics, you obtain a system of coordinates which defines the variety as flat. That you have two different ways to do it. E connection, M connection. And in fact it is what I show is that the Picot model linearizes in the coordinates in which you have natural coordinate for the Hessian manifolds, which define the flat structure for the manifold. But to exponential, maybe, by the way, yes, but in fact it is another way probably to say the same things. No, no, no. It is no. I mean, on the Hessian manifold, you have furthermore Riemannian structure, and in all interesting example, it is not flat at all. If you take Gaussian, the example of Gaussian structure, then you find a curvature which is constant and negative, if I remember well. Yes. By the way, there is a funny story about Amari that you certainly know. He wrote somewhere that he was a student when he found this result, and that he could not publish it as a student, and so he kept it for 20 years. Oh, okay. Thank you very much.